the oldest living being in Lord of the Rings? Who is the oldest, wrinkliest, most cracked, most ancient being in the history of this universe from its very inception to as far as this universe is meant to go? We have a number of options here and a number of different ways to dissect this question. Let's break it down. There is actually a very simple answer to the question of who is the oldest being in Lord of the Rings, and that is Eru and the rest of the Ainur. Eru, also known as Iluvatar, is literally God, like capital G God. He's been around since the very beginning, and he created everything. And the Ainur are essentially angels, born from the very thought of God himself, who together made a great music that created the entire world. The Ainur include characters like Morgoth, the very first Dark Lord, Sauron, the second Dark Lord, Gandalf and the rest of the wizards, the Balrogs, and also the sun and the moon. But I feel like it's a very boring answer to say the oldest being is God and then the angels. We can get a bit more creative than that. Let us first of all consider characters whose ages and origins we don't actually know, the prime example for me being Thomas Bombadil. Tom is said to be oldest and fatherless and existed when the Dark Lord came from outside, but we just don't have any definitive knowledge on the guy, so we're just gonna have to leave that as that. And then the nameless things who exist deep beneath the mines and caverns of Moria and gnaw at the roots of the world and are said by Gandalf to be older than Sauron. Now I have no idea how that's possible. Maybe Sauron doesn't necessarily mean Myron, but at the end of the day, these fucked up eldritch ass Lovecraftian motherfuckers are old as hell. And on that note, Ungoliant, the gargantuan primordial spider of darkness whose true origins and ultimate fate actually remain unknown, but for all we know, she's also old as hell just like the nameless things and maybe is one of the nameless things. But now let's get into some characters who we can get our claws into. First of all, Fangorn, also known as Treebeard, the oldest Ent. Now the Ents awoke at the very same time that the Elves awoke. Therefore the oldest Ent would therefore be the oldest living being in Middle-earth by the time of Lord of the Rings. In fact, Gandalf pretty much confirms that. How about the Dwarves? Well, we've got this guy, Durin the First, the oldest and greatest of the fathers of the Dwarves, the dwarf who founded the realm of Khazad-dûm. I know what you're thinking, dwarves are mortal, how could I possibly be considering him in this list? Well, within dwarven belief and dwarven tradition, they believe that Durin the First was reincarnated 7 different times as 7 different dwarves. Therefore, Durin the First, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th were actually the same dwarf, Durin the Deathless. But that's just a dwarven belief. But now the elves, who get kind of weird, because we have this guy, Glorfindel, who is old. But then he died. But then he was brought back to life and kept on living. How am I possibly supposed to calculate the age of that guy? And then the 3 original elven kings of the 3 elven houses. We have Ingwe of the Vanyar, the High King of the Elves. We have Finwë of the Noldor. And we have Elwë and Olwë of the Teleri. But I think if we're going to discount Treebeard, then the answer has to be Círdan the Shipwright. Círdan was born in Cuiviénen, that's the birthplace of the elves. He was kin to both Elwë and Olwë, and he survives the entire events of Lord of the Rings, meaning he lives on forever. And he's got a beard. That's unrelated, but he's got a beard. I think the answer to the question, the oldest living being in Middle-earth, is Círdan the Shipwright.